So I like to say that Feuerbach, Ludwig Feuerbach, is the proto Heidegger. His first book got him kicked out of school, Thoughts on Death and Immortality. So early on, death was on Feuerbach's mind. It's what he was thinking about. He was thinking about death. He was thinking about the lust for personal immortality. And he assimilated Hegel, but then demystified Hegel. Now, I don't think Hegel is necessarily mystified in his essence, right? But I think Hegel shrewdly presented his humanism as a modification of Christianity. So Bruno Bauer, he wrote this also forgotten, I think it's called The Trumpet of the Last Judgment, and it's written ironically. It pretends to call out Hegel's secularism, his humanistic atheism, but really Bruno Bauer is all for this aspect of Hegel. So Bruno Bauer was trying to show how radical Hegel really was underneath the window dressing. Now Feuerbach, he was a gentleman. There's just something about him, the feeling of Feuerbach. He fell in love with this woman, I think her name was Bertha, and they ran a pottery factory, right? I think he married into a little bit of money, so it freed him for his for further scholarship. But he was also really in love with her. So I think it kind of embarrasses both Marx and Engels the way that Feuerbach talks about romantic love. But to me, this is a likable thing about Feuerbach. But here, this is a quote from his philosophy of the future. Now, I think Feuerbach's work, there's good stuff scattered throughout. Like, this is one of the later works. So Heidegger would say that aletheia, truth, the object is true. The chair that is manifest, that is disclosed, is true. Truth as correspondence depends on the initial revelation of the object. So to me, Feuerbach anticipates some of this. And I think he also anticipates intentionality as the directedness of comportment. So before I read the quote, I'll just say, like Heidegger in History of the Concept of Time and in other works, he talks about intentionality. It's no mystical stuff that's in the mind. It's no mystical mind stuff. It is the directedness of comportment to the life world object. And this is why the object is true. So I feel like Heidegger gets us out of this weird two levels view of mind and matter. But Feuerbach is rebelling against what he sees in Hegel as still too idealistic in this pejorative sense. He says, hence, should the reality of thought be a matter of real seriousness to us, something other than thought must accrue to it. It must, as realized thought, be other than what it is as unrealized, pure thought. The object not only of thought, but also of non-thought. That thought realizes itself means simply that it negates itself, ceases to be mere thought. So this also echoes Husserl's distinction between empty intention and fulfilled intention, right? And this is what Heidegger makes more bodily, more worldly, when he says that intentionality is the directedness of comportment. So Feuerbach uses, this term negates. Thought negates itself as it ceases to be mere thought. I think I prefer the word fulfills, the fulfillment of thought as an intention, but I think we can see the same sort of prioritization of the life world here in Feuerbach. Now, what is this non-thought, this something different from thought? It is the sensuous. That thought realizes itself means, accordingly, that it makes itself the object of the senses. Thus, the reality of the idea, and I believe this is Hegel's idea he's talking about, is sensuousness. But reality is also the truth of the idea. So Heidegger also used true for the disclosed object, the object that is disclosed to the sense organs, the seen or perceived, touched object, and so on. Hence, sensuousness is the truth of the idea. But in this way, we have at the same time made sensuousness the predicate, and the idea or thought the subject. The only question is, why does the idea take on sensuousness? Why does it cease to be true when it is not real or sensuous? Is not its truth thus made dependent on sensuousness? Are not significance and value thus being conceded to the sensuous as such, that is, apart from its being the reality of the idea? If taken by itself, sensuousness is nothing. Why is it needed by the idea? If value and content are bestowed upon sensuousness by the idea, sensuousness is pure luxury and trumpery, only an illusion which thought practices upon itself. But it is not so. The demand that the idea realize itself, that it assume sensuousness, arises from the fact that sensuous reality is unconsciously held to be the truth which is both prior to and independent of thought. If you're a fan of Merleau-Ponty, you will recall the primacy of perception here. Thought proves its truth by taking recourse to sensuousness. How could this be possible if sensuousness was not unconsciously held to be the truth? But since one consciously proceeds from the truth of thought, the truth of sensuousness is acknowledged only in retrospect, whereby sensuousness is reduced merely to an attribute of the idea. But this is a contradiction, for sensuousness is an attribute and yet it lends truth to thought. That is, it is both essential and inessential, both substance and accident. The only way out of this contradiction is to regard sensuous reality as its own subject, to give it an absolutely independent, divine, and primary significance, not one derived from the idea. So subject here, I think he means like subject in relation to predicate.